So what you been up to? Like for real. In real time. Just give me like 2 things you've been up to.
Relationship.
Look,
Like
I don't care.
that's like, if I could just box it all into that. And entrepreneurship.
Relationship and entrepreneurship. So I had a conversation with my therapist. He's going to be a reoccurring person. And he was telling me about, so I was like telling him about my girlfriend. And he was like, that's interesting. Why do you think you're with her? I didn't like that question. I didn't tell him that. But I don't like that question. Don't ask me that. Because then it makes me feel like I have a type, I have a whatever, and I hate that. I don't want to have a type. I just want to be whatever. I just think I'm whatever. I could be with anybody. I could be with a rock if I want to. I could date a tree. And what came out of that conversation was me realizing that a lot of times, and then after looking at my friends and seeing and family members and seeing or whoever, what relationship struggles or issues that they're going through in terms of the types of people that they find themselves in a relationship with, a lot of times people are running from something. And they end up with a person who they believe is the counter to that something.
It's the exact same thing that I was running. Like when I say the exact same thing that I was running from, I was like, how that happen?
And it's the creepy thing that people always say you end up dating your father or whatever or something like that. And I don't buy into that. But I buy into you end up dating someone. I think everyone ends up dating someone, and I don't have any evidence for this, who is the product of stuff you hated and stuff that you loved. And it's like little by little, you're forming who you want to be with out of the things that have hurt you and the things that maybe have made you feel better. And so you gravitate to this person, right? It's a type, or they might say something, you go, oh, or another person might say something, you go, oh, that's not me. I can never be with somebody like that, because that reminds you, because your only point of reference is stuff you've already been through, experiences. So I noticed through conversation with him that there are certain things about myself that I'm aware of. And I naturally will gravitate to someone who I think can offset that thing. I think that they have what I don't have. So me, I am not peaceful. I'm not generally peaceful. So I tend to gravitate towards people who are peaceful. My family isn't peaceful. So I tend to in terms of the chaos relative to tranquil serenity and silence. And then as time goes on, like you said, you realize that what you thought was peaceful was the eye of the storm. And you walk left and realize that you just like this. And you might bring out, and there's a reason I'm there with you. That's the thing. It's like this weird thing. And it makes perfect sense because when you work it out, 2 halves of 1 whole and blah, 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 whatever. But I really am like, for me, I'm seeing with myself, my mom, everybody is choosing to try, and I have a belief that like people choose their friends not based off of, but a big part in terms of they become friends with people that have traits that they wish they had. So it's like one friend might be really good at this one thing, and you subconsciously are trying to build up that skill. And maybe by being around that person, you get more practice, or you see like, oh wow. And this is just for me personally. I look at my group of friends, like we all have something about each other that everyone else doesn't necessarily have. That could be viewed as a positive thing. And whether that someone might be more organized, someone might be more honest, someone might be more self-motivating, someone might be more family oriented, whatever those things are. When I look at a group, rarely you have people who are 10 of the same people.
Right.
It's usually like this mishmash of people looking for missing stuff that they don't have.
I mean, if we want to
go deep, my sister,
go spiritually, right? Like we are designed. We're not designed to be an independent body, right? We are like just like our physical bodies, right? We need a hand. We need all of these different parts. So I think that there is, because we are spirit beings living in the natural, right? So there's a spiritual thing that's happening that that understands that I need to be connected, and not even that because it may be hard. It may be more work to actually find 10 people that are just like you, right? So it's actually just a lot easier that there are folks around you who are different, right? And so I think that just by nature of people being people and people being different and having a different experience, that when you develop friendships with folks, you'll see like, oh, maybe we have something similar, but there's this one thing, right, that you have that is really valuable, and I would like to learn that. I'm not sure if we intentionally or even subconsciously do it. I think that just by the nature of people being people and being different.
You think it's inherent in us as humans.
Yeah, that you're going to be in a group where people have different strengths.
Interesting. Yeah. And I think being aware of that has helped me because it allows me to not force my narrative, my perspective on other people, and try and see, oh, there's value in this thing. Oh, there's value in them being the way that they are. Or, hey, this is just what I would do. You can do it however you do. This is what I would do. This is the positives from how I did it, negatives from how I did it, but this is how I would approach the situation. And I'm learning that I'm finding what my strengths are more through where I am, like the difference between people calling you all the time for everything, and you just trying to help however you can, and then you being very conscious about how to help. It's like wisdom. I think wisdom is like, or discernment. It's like, I'll just use myself as an example. I used to be the type of person that was like trying to help everybody with everything. Like, you need help putting that nail in the thing? All right, boom, I got you. What you need? Like, we went down to the basement in 1950, and there's these ditches on the side of the basement. And I was like, and I remember that me, Stephen, and JP helped your father dig ditches in the basement. And like, I used to be just doing random, that was just provided. I was like, what was I doing out here? Like, I was just like, for what? Like, I was just doing it. And then as opposed to being very specific about how you choose to spend your energy and how you choose to be an asset to people and recognizing when you're out of your depth. You don't have to answer, I'm speaking to myself, I don't have to answer every question. I don't know everything. And
then, so it's like, well, what's the conversation plan in my mind that I am doing that, right? Am I saying yes to feel valuable? Am I saying yes because I want to look like, so like, what is the motivation behind, like, that's something I ask myself, right? Because I am like that. Like, why am I always available when I need to get stuff done, right? And so it's like, oh, there's a perception of Candace as this person who is, helpful, supportive, all about community, all about, so I need to maintain that perception because I don't want to say no. And then somebody think, oh, she really not about community. She really not about supporting. And I had to get to a place where I'm like, I can't do that. Like, somebody asked me the other day, like, oh, I had this event. You wasn't there. Like, what happened? I was really, it was one of the grantees that we gave money to. And I said that I was going to be there, right? And I'm a type of person, if I say something, I actually want to follow through on it. And so usually, like, when somebody would say, I would make up an excuse quick. Oh, mother went, she needed to go to the market and I need to, something, right? I would make up something. But I'm trying to stop that, right? So
the Lord is speaking through you to me.
When he said that, I looked at him and I had a quick, like, lie, don't lie. I was like, you know what? I just sat in the house. I said, I've been doing stuff all week, like left and right. I just needed a break. I watched TV. And I'm sorry. I apologize. I said, I know I said I was going to be there. So I apologize for not keeping my word, but I literally sat down and watched TV.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, that's needed sometimes. He's like, nah, I get it, right? And it's like this fear of like, oh, I had to keep up this. And I'm like, no, but I'm a human being and I can't be everywhere. I can't do everything. And I think when you interact with people with authenticity like that, it's actually more powerful than like running yourself thin and ragged. So
yeah, that's definitely something that I feel like you have to learn from experience, because I literally was in the same, like, people be calling me for just anything. I'm like Uber or something, like, for real. Like, hey, I need you to go and carry 3, was that Diddy, Dave Chappelle, give me 3 sugar cookies from the Bronx. And he did, making the band or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, random, like, I have all the time in the world to just be going on random errands. But I learned, like you're saying, whoever the way I'm building the perception people have of myself. So the more I say yes to those things, and the more people expect those things out of me. And it's a hard thing, especially if it's family or friends or people that you care about. But I have this thing where I feel like I need to be able to do everything. I need to be literally over there and over there right now while I'm over here talking to you. And a lot of times you stress yourself out because it's literally impossible. So you're setting yourself up for failure. And somebody's gonna be disappointed.
Right.
And that's where I found myself. I say 2 years ago, I found myself in a situation where I was literally trying to say yes to everything and everyone. And I just, at one point, I remember I said, this is just a part of life. It's just somebody's gonna be disappointed. Somebody's gonna be mad that I didn't do something that I said I was gonna do, whatever. And I was just like, whatever. And now I'm more so trying to have the thought of being very specific about how I choose, like, what do I commit to? What am I really committing to? And can I do that given the time frame that I have? And it's so difficult, and this is my question is to you, do you feel like there is a double portion of expectations for African Americans, specifically African Americans, who are seen as the intelligent one, or who are seen as the one who is supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z, in terms of you're supposed to be there for your community, there for your what your dreams are, what your personal expectations are, your relationship. Like, you have to do. Maybe this is me saying that, but it feels like, or it seems like, that there is this, what people used to say, like, you have to work 2 times as hard as your white counterparts or whatever. And I feel like that I've seen it burn out a lot of young African American people that may have wanted to run for office, may have wanted to have a startup, may have wanted to do this, because there's so much pressure on you to make it. Like, there's the American dream, and then there's like the Black American dream. The American dream is hard in itself, like, owning your own business or whatever that is, and then doing it while Black at the same time, I think, in my view, can put a crazy amount of pressure on people, because Kendrick talked about it in his To Pimp a Butterfly album of survivor's guilt. And all these, like, that album was like super deep. And as I get older, it resonates with me more. But the feeling of, do I really make it if I don't bring the people with me? Or also, okay, how many people you got to bring with you? You bring the whole hood with you. You bring your whole community. You bring your whole family. You bring your immediate family. You bring your little brother. Like, what if your brother don't want to come with you? So it's like
so I think you have to. I have to right. Do what I can, and so while there's like the saying, right, to whom much is given, much is expected, right? I think there's a nuance in that statement, right? Yes, much is expected with what you have the capacity to do. Not much is expected all across the board, right? And so I think sometimes we think all across the board, everything is expected all the time. And that's not true. I have to look at, what do I have the capability to do? Now, when I talk spiritually in terms of like God and leaning on his strength, right? Then that opens up a whole window of opportunity, right? So talking about that conversation of having a double portion because of either being Black, intelligent, privilege, because I have a master's degree, there's a level of privilege that I have. I have two parents that I know very well. There's a level of privilege that I have, right, over some other folks. But I could either, there's a scripture that talks about take no thought about tomorrow and the clothes that you will have to wear. And really that's like the King James version, but in a different translation, it's like, don't worry.
Yeah.
But that's when that version that says take no thought, it's like I'm literally taking thoughts that are not mine, right? That's what worry is. I'm taking things that don't belong to me, right? And so when I had that revelation, like, I'm worrying, I'm taking thoughts that don't belong to me, right? Where I could be taking the thoughts of Christ and says, lean on me, right? For all that you need. And so then it becomes less of a burden and a struggle because it's like, Lord, you know my needs. You know, where I need to move and navigate. So if this white person or somebody doesn't want to have me in that space because I'm Black, you're going to open the door however it needs to be open. Right. And so if I don't have that connection with God and like putting my weight on, just like I'm putting my weight on this chair, if I can't put my weight on the words that he's told me in his promises, then of course I'm going to be stressed. Of course I'm going to worry. Of course I'm not going to believe that I can get this thing done because I'm looking at things from the natural. Right. But once I step into like, Lord, you've already paved the way. I just need to walk into it. Yeah. I can walk into a space more confidently because I know that he's already made things available. And if I walk into that space and the door is closed, it's like, oh, that one wasn't for me. Got it. Where's the next door? Right. And so then you're able to move a lot more light. And it doesn't mean you don't face stress and you don't worry. Like, no, we're still flesh and, living in this natural world. So those things will come up. But the more you begin to build that muscle to say, okay, I get to navigate the way God wants me to navigate. And I get to trust that I'm walking in the path that he's already designed for me. And maybe this closed door was to teach me a lesson. So I get to ask, okay, well, what's the lesson? Got it. All right. And then something else will come up, a no or a rejection. Oh, and there's a lesson in that, right?
And also with that, I'm just, as you're talking, I agree 100% because every decision that I have thought I made in my life, right? Always, 100% of the time. If I was to tell somebody this is what my life is, they would look at me like I'm crazy because it doesn't make any sense. It literally makes no sense. It seems like random choices, random. I end up somewhere, I don't know, and somebody, and somehow I'm somewhere. Yeah. And I have always given God the glory for me not, it has nothing to do, trust me, it has nothing to do with whatever people might perceive are my strengths, people might perceive or whatever, because I've made a lot of mistakes in my life that should have been career ending, so to speak, or that could have been career ending, that for other people have been career ending. And I think as I'm listening to you, there's a lot of people that are searching for that offset, that extra capacity that we don't naturally have as humans. And people are looking for it these days in technology, giving them the ability to do more with less time or with the same amount of time. People look for it in crystal rocks. People are looking for it everywhere. And of course, we're not going to get into religion because, or what religion means in America. And that's a whole nother conversation. Right. But I think what happens with people is there is this natural, just like how you said in terms of relationships and friendships, people naturally feel, I would say most people have this feeling of wanting to be in a partnership with someone else, wanting to find a group of people that they can be honest with and accept them for who they are, and then help them be who they need to be, and then wanting to not feel like they have to be the one to do everything. People naturally want that. People naturally want to be able to just be like, I need this to happen, but I don't know how this can happen. And thus, people pray. And of course, skeptics will say, whatever they will say. But for me personally, my life can only be explained through God, making some things happen for real. And I think if people allow themselves to be okay with the fact that, like you're saying, the fact that you're not supposed to be able to do everything, literally. So like step one for a lot of people is your parents. Your parents are the people that do a lot of stuff for you. Literally, you can't do a lot. So you like the little baby, and baby's just useless, right? So you're a baby, you literally can do nothing. You can't even eat on your own, right? Boom, 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 figure stuff out. Okay, great. And then another level of independence or whatever, and there's this push for independence, I think, and so that's a whole nother thing. But people get we're a relationship. You're able to have a relationship, and that person does one thing, and you do another thing. Or at your job, you want a team.
So, and that to me is also connected to a very spiritual thing, right? Because you don't have to, and I've heard this before, but you don't have to teach children how to say no or to say mine, right? I mean, they hear it, but the context in which they use it in is very specific. Right, so you don't have to teach them to be mischievous. Like I've seen my nephew do things. I'm like, how did you even know to hide that or to think to hide that from somebody? Right, that's in them because we were born in sin. Right, so when we think about the push to be independent, that's a sin nature, a flesh nature type of thing, because that wasn't our original design. So we have this battle between. I mean, even kids, right? When they start being able to put on, no, I want to do it. I want to button my own. I want to do it. It's just like me. Let me do it. I want to be separate from you. I don't need your help. And that's a very flesh nature, opposite of how God designed us to be. And when I think about, I hear I'll cut you off.
No.
Oh, okay. As you were talking, I was also thinking about, because you were saying, like, who do we bring? Brother, cousin, do I bring the whole neighborhood? Like, how do I decide how many people do I bring? And I was having a conversation with a group of women, or like two women. And one woman was very upset, talking about like how these other women were doing her wrong. And she's like, it's just this whole crab in the barrel mentality. Everybody just want to pull on you, and and I'm just trying to like make it out. And so it's like two levels to that conversation, right? One, which is very well known, crabs, their natural habitat is not a barrel, right? So they're going to act in a way that is not natural to them, right? So that's on one level. On the second level is when you actually see a crab get out of the barrel, it takes another crab with it because someone is holding on to, right? So it's like certain people have a certain capacity, and it may be seen as a double portion, right? It may be seen as a double portion, but certain people have the capacity to be able to bring others along. And so because of that, and a lot of people that have that capacity don't want it. They like, nah, man, not me. Like, why I gotta be the one?
That's evident in the Bible.
Right?
Every person that God chose,
they don't want it.
Person that I don't want nothing to do with this. I'm just trying to make, be with some sheep. You know what I mean? Trying to just do my own thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
real.
That's a natural. So I think we get to, even just on a. If I don't bring God into, which is hard, but if you just keep it at a natural level, right? If we have the ability to support, right, or to bring people up, then do that, right? Do it within, and you gotta, and this is where you check in with yourself, like, how am I feeling? Like, is it overwhelming? Where do I get to like release? Maybe I kick this crab off because I can't, like, that's a weight. I
crabs,
kick it off, kick that one off, right? Because another crab will help him up, right?
Yeah.
So, but you got to be able to check in with yourself, because if you loosen the grip, then everybody falling, and that's no benefit to anybody.
And as you're using that analogy, as you're using that crab analogy, what I'm also realizing is that through people always talk about, there were other people other than Martin Luther King Jr., right, who helped the civil rights movement, equal rights movement, who were a part of that. And I think that is one of the key factors in all of this, is that oftentimes you feel like when you are the chosen one, you feel like you're alone. You feel like it's all on you, when in reality, it should be all on you. It should be other people that may not have the exact portion as you do. If you want to think about it in the sense of a church or in a company or whatever you want to think about it, right? You got the bishop or whoever it is at top in terms of responsible for the direction, and then you got, the deacons or whoever the people are under, who are supposed to be able to lead certain portions or certain aspects of it, so that that person doesn't have to take the mental capacity or spiritual capacity or natural capacity away from other pivotal things to do that. So it's like another level of that is being able to, and this is, it's not, well, we get deep anyway. What I see within our community historically is not on any lack of our own, in the sense of it's not like we inherently lack the ability to, but what seems to have pervaded the culture is there's one, right? There's not multiple. There's one guy or one girl, and it can't be a couple that's on the same level. It's only one. It's like the Django movie. You did one in a million, nigga, or whatever he said, whatever the line was. There seems to be that mentality inwardly and also socially. So like the token, the social culture's only letting one in, and then internally within our own family or community, we only get one. So if we know we only get one, everyone's pouring all their energy into that one, because they know that's just the only chance we got. So they gotta be the best version of best representation of us. So if that's the mentality, that's why when the celebrities or people that have reached certain heights in our community fall or are seen as a certain way, it's like a blow. Like, it's like everybody, oh my God, I can't believe it. Because that was the one. He was the one or she was the one. You can never believe. And it's all this from a biological standpoint, because I watch a lot of documentaries. And here's my analogy. A mother polar bear, right? Will only a mother polar bear is only expected to be able to raise one child, right? If she raises two children, that's great. But she's only expecting to be able to raise one child because of the environment that they live in. It's craziness, right? And cold and Arctic, whatever. So she will naturally put more energy into one of the children that seem to be more suited for the environment. And this is true in a lot of animals and a lot of cultures or whatever. The runt of the pack or the leader or the strongest one or whatever. And everybody else is kind of off to the side. And like you're saying, it's this individualistic mentality of there can't be more than one.
But see, it's by design.
Go ahead.
Right? So we had to recognize that slavery was a well-designed
oil machine
mechanism, right? And they knew that there's so many layers in that machine, right? That we may never experience. We will most likely always experience the residual impacts of that, right? And so when you look at It's so many even ideas that I'm like thinking about. But on the one hand, right, you have the slave master choosing, right, who's going to be in the house and who's not. That's one area of separation, right? Then you have how the word motherfucker came about, right? And what does that do to your relationship?
For people who don't know, how did that word come about?
Because they would have their children actually having sex with their mothers, right? To keep producing children like they were cattle, right? And so that does something to the mentality of a person. And that is passed down. That there's a term called post-traumatic slavery syndrome, which is defining that things that happened during slavery has actually been physiologically passed down, and socially passed down. And the woman, Dr. Joy, oh my gosh, why am I blanking on her name? I can't remember her.
Yeah, Dr. Joy.
But so she gives an example, right, of these two parents, black mother, black son, white mother, white son. The sons are cool. They're in the same school. Okay. They go to, they're about to get an award or something like that, or somebody is congratulating them. And the white mom is like, oh, thank you. And then the black mom was like, oh, he's all right. He's okay. She's like, no, like your son did great. Like he got the top in the class, but yeah, he's fine. Yeah, and he's all right. Like sometimes he, but it's like downplaying that. And she talks about how that shows up in different places and spaces and says like, that is a direct correlation and a direct connection to how parents had to be to protect their children from the slave master. If the child looked strong or looked like they were capable, no, he's weak. No, he's dumb. You don't want, had to talk down. And that's something that has been carried throughout generations through generations. And so, and those are only just 3 things, right? There are so many other things that have impacted. And so it was by design. So when we talk about, being separated like that and that there's only this one that we raise up, like those things are by design, and the way we interact with each other are by design.
So I'm gonna go left, but I'm with you. Right, follow me. So a couple weeks ago, I was thinking to myself exactly that. I don't know enough about it. So you talking is blowing my mind. But I was thinking about why in media there's really only 2 versions of black men, and it could be true, but I was just thinking for women, but I was just thinking of men. There is the usually feminine, homosexual black man that may be, or effeminate or whatever, that's propped up, whether it's in fashion, music, movies, whatever. And then there's this super duper masculine, like no thinking, just whatever. There isn't a Brad Pitt. There isn't a George Clooney in the sense of a middle. I mean, maybe Denzel might be the only idea, but if you look at a lot of his roles, it's usually like tough love, tough whatever. Like it's never really like.
Not a lot of his roles. I mean, Training Day.
Early in his career, I don't know enough. You're right. But I'm just saying now more than maybe in the past. What I've seen, what I'm noticing on TV, on shows, the specific choices for black characters, black male characters, is usually one or the other. It's rarely just a regular dude that would exist in real life. It's usually a caricature. And I know that existed in slavery. And so my thought was, and this is, again, I watch a lot of documentaries, right? So my thought were, in nature and in human society, certain behaviors are beneficial, right? For you to progress. Same thing with what you're saying with the mothers. If I notice my son has exhibiting these certain behaviors, I'm going to stunt that like forcibly. He might be naturally the greatest and could have been the greatest and would be the greatest, but he can't be, because they're going to kill him, or they're going to take him, or they're going to do whatever they're going to do, right? And so in slavery, sure, as a lot of people are becoming more familiar with, you have the breaking of the bull, right? In which I'm not going to describe it, but I'll describe it, in which they usually take the strongest black man. And there was some different techniques, but the one that I read about is they would rape him in front of the rest of the slaves and beat him and basically just completely humiliate that. So if you, as a young black male, saw that this is what happens, this is
the
the point
strongest of us.
with the strongest of us, if I exhibit any behavior that is akin to this, right, this is what's going to happen to me. You internalize that, right, as you're saying with the black moms. You internalize that as a man and potentially eventually as a father, even after the end of slavery and Reconstruction, all that stuff. Like you're saying, there's these behaviors that are being selected for by the well-oiled machine on purpose to create the perfect slave. But now when you're not a slave, you still have those behaviors that were selected for on the whole specifically for you to be able to do whatever it is they want you to do.
And the well-oiled machine looks different now. Now it's systematic. So it's still there, right? It is not, it may be not as present. Maybe now it's more present. But before it's like, oh, slavery is over, no, it just morphed into a different machine with the same values, the same goals, right? So those behaviors are actually still being selected for. So it's not just like, oh, well, they're just still here after slavery is all said and done. It's just a residual. That's part of it. But no, those behaviors are actually still being selected for.
Agreed. So my thinking, and people can take this however they want to take it, because I really don't care. But my thinking is that what we're seeing now, I remember I asked one of my friends who's gay guy, would you rather be black or would you rather be gay? And he thought about it. I think he probably was offended a little bit at first by it, but I've been cool with him for 4 or 5 years or whatever. And thought about it, and he said he'd rather be gay. And why I say that is, if there's certain behaviors, like I said before, that are being selected for, right? There's this money over here behind this door, but unless you look, walk, talk, and we can go through light skin, we can go through certain behaviors, we can go through the way you talk, we can go through all of these parameters. That if the barrier is money, and you only you go through the little detector, and it got to detect that you fit in, however it is you fit in, whether you fit in through whatever those parameters are. That's the only way you get into the bag. Your only way you're getting on the other side, or the only way you're reaching certain levels within organizations, within society, within media, within how people view, etc. And this is true for, I would say this is true. I haven't thought about it as much for other groups, but I'm sure this is true. And people play it off as stereotypes. Not play it off, but that's sort of the blanket term. Stereotypes or prejudice or whatever, or pigeonholing or typecasting or whatever people want to call it, is seen as not as insidious, in my opinion, as it really is. Because, as you said, seeing what is being selected for, what is the winning behavior? What is the thing that, how do I get to where that person is? Who's over there? Who's up there? Okay, if I want to get up there, I got to do what they did. So if that's a white dude that I'm looking at, that's at my job, that is the executive director, I got to be that. So in my mind, there's not much choice for black men, black women, black people in America. There are specific routes that have been pre-selected by the machine to say that you get this money after you do or become who it is that we want you to become.
And see, when we're talking about choice, right?
Yes.
choice is a self-determined thing, not somebody else determining it for you. Now, the options.
Yes.
Now, the well-oiled machine have created options, right, that we can choose to accept or not accept. And even in slavery, even with breaking the bull, there have been people that are like, no, and no.
Of course.
Right? And I still don't care. I'm still going to do it this way. Very few, but there still have been people like that. And so this gets to like, well, maybe those stories haven't been told as much because they didn't live to see, you know, but that kind of spirit of like, I'm not accepting this, you're still going to see that, right, come up. And I think we have to, as Black people and as people who want to be allies to Black people, get to figure out, well, what are the ways that we can support those folks who want to kind of buck the system, support an avenue, right? Develop an avenue for that to happen, right? But sometimes I used to feel like we had to have enough people to believe that, and even like there weren't that many people that started supporting Harriet when she decided to, you know, bring a lot of slaves. Right. But as she started to create the way and started people, oh, okay, maybe she got something. And when
she came back,
people are like that, right? People are like, I'll see you do it first and then maybe I'll, you know, so we have to be committed to being the ones like, do or die. This is the path that I'm going to set. And whether people see the vision or not, I need to be the one to kind of blaze that trail, so to speak, so that people can see like this is actually a way, because that's a part of the double portion, right? Some people are not going to be that one to say, oh, I'm going to create this path, but they will be the one, and there's no shade to them, right? Yeah. They will be the one that says, oh, well, all right, I see that path that they created. I'm gonna go ahead and walk on that, right? And that's you know, people are how they are. And so, but we just have to be the ones that are committed to what am I not accepting anymore, right? What is not acceptable for my life, for the life of how I want either children or future generations to live through, and how am I making a difference for it to be, for them to be able to live in a way that like they're not just surviving, that they actually are enjoying their lives, because life is meant to be enjoyed.
And I guess within that and parallel to that, the question I'm going to ask you is, how important, and I'm just going to ask it, how important is it for Black people to control their image, to control what a Black person looks like? And what I mean by that is, historically, right, who owned, we don't know that white people owned publications, magazines. If you want to go back into the Western days, they were the ones that drew the posters for a saloon or for a music show or whatever, and decided this is what Black looks like. Right? This is the image. We decide the image of what a Black person looks like and what people know. And then when you get up on stage, you better act within the realm of these options. If you don't act within the realms of the options, these are the ramifications, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's true in Hollywood in general. Yeah. So how important is it for Black people to be a part of, and I don't mean be a part of in the sense of under a white organization, but be a part of the national narrative, because people are going to put out images of what everybody else is, period. But how important is it for us to have our own billboard or avenue or whatever it is you want to call it, to say this is how we perceive ourselves?
So I find problem with that question because white people don't walk around saying, how do we want to be perceived in the world? Right? How do we want people to think about us like in this space? They just exist. Right? So while I have a problem with that question, I understand where it's coming from. Right? And I get that there is a necessity for us to not be passive players in how we're being expressed, that we get to own how we be expressed.
That's what, yes.
And so there is a role for that, but I don't think we decide this because we're such different, and there is even contention in Black communities to say, well, I'm not that version of Black and I'm not that version of Black. Yeah. So I think we get to define how we want to be expressed. And at the same time, because how the narrative of who Black people are and how they represent themselves does impact access to certain things. So I think it's not more so controlling the narrative, it's controlling our own access and our own agency. Like, how do we set up structures that we can actually exist in a way that makes sense for how we want to live?
I completely agree that. And what I meant, and I'm glad you clarified, I didn't mean that Black people have to choose one idea and this is what all Black people are. I meant for us to, I guess why I think it's important. And I never used to think representation was important. I thought that people just decide who they are and figure it out and then be that. And I had a corny moment in which I was at a restaurant or shop or something like that. And I saw a bunch of Black kids on a field trip. And the place I was in was maybe, it looked fancy or predominantly whatever. It didn't look like I belonged in there. Probably had a hoodie on, whatever. And I saw the way that these kids was like, how you get in there? And I don't mean to glorify that space. But the idea is that we can get in anywhere. It don't matter. It doesn't matter. I've never had the thought, thankfully, by virtue of my mom and whatever, that these certain places ain't for me or certain places I can't go. And on the flip side, I don't say, ooh, I have to go to this place to feel cool or to feel nice. It's just that I'm going to go where I feel like going at that moment in time. And I think that's what you're saying in the sense of that freedom to not be one of those avenues, to not be one of those options, and to say that, the cliche is Black people are not a monolith. But that's real. It's like being able for a Black kid to be able to say whatever it is that I'm feeling in terms of what I want for myself and for my life, whether that's to be, I interviewed on the street 2 kids. One kid wants to do theater, another kid wanted to be an architect, and they both went to City. And they were best friends and had opposite opinions on everything. It was amazing. One kid thought the answer to all the violence was more police, right? And I'm like, what Black kid thinks that? Because I'm in my own head, and I think from whatever conversations I've had, that's never the answer. That's not possible. And literally watching their conversation and watching them just be homies after they walked away and whatever, and it wasn't a big deal that they disagreed or had different perspectives on what the answer was, completely reset my mind from this idea of we all have to coalesce into this one thing. And if we don't do that, there's no possible way. And we have to just give up our own individuality. And I think that that's a tough thing because a lot of people would make the argument that what got Trump elected is Republicans. I'm kind of skipping around, but is Republicans' ability to coalesce into one single thing and say, we don't care about all the other stuff. We just care about this one thing.
And that's something that I've been working on. And I've reached out to several Black, relatively young, anywhere from like maybe 25 to 45, right? Reached out strategically to these group of people saying, look, I want to work together with you guys. And I know, when I sent the communication via email, I BCC'd everybody because I knew that there were people there that didn't necessarily like each other, right? But I knew that there was a vision bigger than all of that, right? And so once the folks who I knew didn't like each other, like, yes, I want to do that. I'm committed to doing that. And they came out into the space and we had a conversation. Like, and I said, like, this is not meant to agree on everything. This is not meant to build a consensus and say, we all agree on this thing. This is to say, where do we say, I can work with you on this? And then where that overlaps, you work with each other, right? And where it doesn't, you don't. But I'm not trying to diminish your image. I'm not trying to, and we're also creating a space where we can, like, we get comfortable enough, or maybe not even comfortable enough, but we respect our work enough that I can pull you up and say, like, look, I know we think differently. This thing right here, like, nah, that's not cool. Like, we need to be able to create a space where we can hold each other accountable and say, listen, I know you stand for this, but you doing this, that's not cool. Right. And so we tried to do that. And I think in the initial, and I'm going to bring it up, I'm going to restart it later, but it was too much of semantics, wanting to be on the same page in terms of words. And I'm like, this is not what we're here for.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to one of the girls, and she like does not like one of the guys there, right? But she said, you know what? And she works at a foundation, and she said, white people do this all the time. She's like, they hate each other guts, but they will sit in a table and they will get the work done. Yeah. So it's like, that's what's holding us. Like, we don't have to agree on everything. We don't even have to hold hands, walk. We don't have to be friends. Right. But there's a work that's bigger than our dislike for each other. And that's what we have to be committed to. And it's just so hard.
And it's I think one of the initial things in my vision, but in my experience, when I decided to go to a school in the South and meet and really just be surrounded, even though it was a liberal arts school, a lot of my friends were conservatives. And it's cool. Like, I am so thankful that I don't have this idea that everyone I talk to has to agree with me. You know, people have asked me, oh, well, how are you friends with this person? How are you friends with that person? How you could ever be cool with this person and that person? And I just think about my family. My family is like, you know, on the outside looking into a lot of people, it might be one unit. But on the inside looking around, is on every end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
When it comes to everything, to the point where I may not agree with my aunt about one thing. That ain't gonna make me not go over her house and hang out and ask her, and we doing whatever. And it's like, people are in this mindset where they are in this echo chamber or in this silo of everybody around me is the same. Everybody around me has to be the same. And I see, in my opinion, that always leads to death. And I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean that realistically. Like, any organism that only is around itself and has no diversity.
That's true.
Any ecosystem that's all clams, that ecosystem is dead.
Yep.
You need dirt. You need the clams need something to filter. They need a whole bunch of other stuff for the whole ecosystem to thrive. The best ecosystem is one that's hella diverse. And it's super corny and whatever. But people just seem to not realize that all of those voices in that room is so necessary, because every time I'm in a room like that, I learn so much.
Yeah.
My mind is just open.
I think when we see, like, you know, civil rights movements or any movements, right, we see those people walking in the same direction. And we assume that walking in the same direction means agreement on everything, and it doesn't. Because when you break down some of those movements, you will see how people vehemently disagree, right? And then also we think, and this goes back to a point that you were making before, that there may be a leader, right, which is the face of it, but each part is very integral. Like, there were women, wives, right, or sisters or aunties or whoever who were cooking the food at these meetings. And that was hella important, because those niggas need to eat, right? If they were starved, they would not have been able to do that marching or whatever else they did out there. So, like, that was a key. Food was a key part to that, and that story is not really highlighted. It's looked at as a minuscule thing.
And people have this thing where they place value on one job as more than the other. It frustrates me so much, because this is back to our relationship conversation in the beginning. I cook. In every relationship I've ever been in, I cook 85% of the time. because I like to eat. And that's just how I don't know, I was raised. Mother always said, your wife better come to me and say that you know how to cook. You better like, whatever. Like she say stuff like, so I just had that thought. I don't place any value. I don't think I'm any less of a man, any less of a person if I'm cooking. I understand why it looks different for a woman who might be seen as cooking all the time, because then people pigeonhole you or whatever. But that's only if there's value placed, in my opinion. That's only if there is value, whether it's monetary value, respect, social capital, whatever, placed on one activity relative to, oh, I got a briefcase and I got a suit and I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff and I'm typing a lot, and there's a whole bunch of value and monetary whatever associated with that thing. And I think that goes back to that meeting room in terms of respecting everybody's hustle, respecting everybody's grind, respecting what everybody does is integral in being able to bridge that gap or have that conversation or get to that goal. Because you don't go into it saying, well, yeah, she only really cooking, or he only pick up trash, he only got to dump, you work with trash man or whatever. Like you said, any one of those, if they didn't cook their food, it's over. It's over. If the trash man today said we ain't picking up trash, Baltimore, ain't nobody care about the Ritz. Ain't nobody gonna care about the Inner Harbor. Ain't nobody gonna care about T-Row. It's over for everybody if the trash people go on strike.
Yeah.
If the bus people go on strike. So it's like reinforcing people's value in terms of what they actually do. And there's multiple ways you can do that, but whatever. But I think even just first starting off with it from your perception.
Yeah.
And being like, just because this person does whatever, X, Y, and Z, because they're a pastor, a priest, a nun, or whatever the thing is, I don't know. It's like, I don't have to assign a value that's lower than my value because of that. And I think people stop the conversation right there because they just start off with, well, yeah, he don't really know. He don't really be doing nothing. He just be doing whatever. She just be doing whatever. So yeah. Anyway, we can keep talking.